Raymond Kessler was not a man given to flights of fancy. At 46 years old, with 23 of those spent hauling refrigerated freight across the country, he'd seen his share of strange things on the midnight asphalt. But he'd always found a rational explanation. Fatigue, light plane tricks, a story for the next truck stop. He was a skeptic, grounded in the solid reality of diesel engines and delivery manifests. His current manifest was simple: 32,000 pounds of frozen poultry kept at a steady -10 degrees Fahrenheit, destination Omaha. The Nevada stretch of I-80 is a special kind of lonely after midnight. It's a black ribbon thrown over an empty world where the only signs of life are the twin beams of your own headlights cutting through the dark. It was around 1:18 in the morning when he saw her, standing on the shoulder near mile marker 312. A woman, barefoot on the gravel, waving one arm with a desperate urgency. Ray's policy was simple: you don't stop. Not for anyone. It's a rule you learn fast. But something about this was different. She looked to be in her mid-30s, her clothes were torn, and even in the brief sweeping glare of his headlights, he could see her face was bruised and streaked with tears. This wasn't a scam. This was trouble. Against his better judgment, he slowed the massive rig, the air brakes hissing in protest, and pulled over onto the shoulder. He rolled down the passenger window, the cold desert air rushing in. He kept the doors locked. "You need help, ma'am?" She stumbled closer, her face a mask of raw panic. She was crying, he was sure of it. But as she reached the passenger door, something shifted. The tears stopped. Her expression went from terrified to unnervingly calm, her eyes locking onto his. Her voice, when it came, was flat, devoid of any emotion. "You've got someone back there," she said. And then, with a chilling finality, "Don't open it." Before Ray could even process the words, she turned and walked away. Not back down the road, but straight out into the desert, disappearing into the oppressive darkness beyond his headlights as if she was never there at all. Ray sat there for a full minute, the engine rumbling beneath him. He scanned the desert. Nothing. No footprints in the dust his lights could catch. He shook his head, chalking it up to the weirdness of the road. A drifter, maybe on drugs. He put the truck in gear and pulled back onto the highway, the strange encounter already starting to feel like a dream. He'd driven maybe 5 more miles when a high-pitched alarm blared through the cab. He glanced at the console. It was the temperature gauge for the trailer. The alarm was screaming that the temp was rising, a critical failure for a load of frozen poultry. Cursing under his breath, he pulled over again, this time grabbing a heavy flashlight. The seal on the trailer doors was a heavy-duty bolt lock, put on at the depot. It was still in place, untouched. That didn't make sense. A temperature failure meant a problem with the refrigerator unit, not the seal. As he got closer to the trailer, he noticed a smell. It wasn't the faint sterile scent of a freezer unit. It was something else. Something metallic and damp, like wet asphalt after a summer rain. His unease grew. He fumbled with the keys, unlocked the heavy bolt, and swung the massive doors open. The beam of his flashlight cut through the frigid air inside, and Ray's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't poultry. The trailer was packed, floor to ceiling, with a mangled, twisted mess of highway guardrails. They were bent and warped, streaked with dirt and what looked horribly like dried blood. The metal gleamed wetly in his flashlight beam. He felt a wave of vertigo. This was impossible. He had watched them load his truck. He had signed the manifest. And then he heard it. A sound from deep within the tangled wreckage. Knock, knock, knock. A pause. Knock, knock, knock. It was deliberate, rhythmic, exactly like someone trapped in wreckage signaling for help. Terror, cold and absolute, seized him. He slammed the doors shut, fumbling to lock them, his hands shaking so badly he could barely fit the key. He scrambled back into his cab and grabbed his phone, dialing 911. It took the state troopers 18 minutes to arrive. 18 minutes that felt like a lifetime, with Ray locked in his cab, staring at the trailer in his side mirror, expecting the doors to fly open at any second. Two troopers pulled up, their faces etched with professional calm. Ray stumbled out of the cab, the words spilling out of him in a frantic, incoherent rush. The woman, the warning, the guardrails, the knocking. They listened patiently, then went to work. One of them checked the seal on the trailer. "It's intact, sir. Hasn't been tampered with." The other checked the temperature reading from the unit's external panel. Reading -11 degrees, unit's running perfectly. They opened the doors. Ray braced himself, but the troopers just shone their flashlights inside with a practiced air. One of them turned back to him, his expression a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Sir," he said slowly, "it's a full load of frozen poultry, just like your manifest says." Ray pushed past them, staring into the trailer. And he was right. Stacked pallets of frozen chickens, exactly as they should be. No guardrails, no blood. The trooper pointed his light at the ground. "No footprints off the shoulder, except yours." They asked to see his dashcam footage. Ray agreed, desperate for some proof that he wasn't losing his mind. The first trooper reviewed the footage from the first stop at mile marker 312. He turned the laptop around to show Ray. The screen showed the truck pulling over. It showed Ray talking, but he was talking to an empty stretch of desert. There was no woman. The log noted it as an assisted pedestrian, no action required. The footage from the second stop, where Ray had heard the knocking, was even worse. It showed the truck pulling over, but the driver's side door never opened. On camera, Ray never exited the cab. "You've been on the road a long time," the senior trooper said, his voice gentle. "The mind plays tricks. You need to get some sleep." They left, and Ray was alone again with his truck, his cargo of poultry, and the chilling certainty that he was going insane. But one last desperate thought surfaced. He called the trooper back before they got too far. He asked them, begged them to run a search for accidents around mile marker 312. The trooper sighed, but agreed. A few minutes later, the radio in Ray's cab crackled. It was the trooper. His voice had lost its patronizing edge. It was tight, strained. He told Ray that in the last decade, there had been 27 fatal crashes in that exact 3-mile stretch of I-80. Every single one involved a driver who, according to the reports, swerved to avoid a person in the road. In all 27 incidents, no bodies of any pedestrians were ever recovered. Ray Kessler drove his truck to Omaha, delivered his load, and then quit. He never drove long haul again. But before he left, he pulled the data from his truck's onboard sensors. Everything was normal, except for one tiny, inexplicable detail. On the night of the incident, as his truck passed mile marker 312, the weight sensors registered an anomaly. For about 3 miles, the truck's total weight increased by exactly 120 pounds. Then, just as suddenly, it was gone. Ray understood then. The thing on the side of the road, the woman who wasn't a woman, wasn't trying to be saved. It was trying to be picked up. And it knew. It knew exactly how much empathy weighs.